Welcome to this explainer. Okay, let's dive right in. Today, we're unpacking an absolutely fascinating ancient story from the epic Mahabharata. It's this incredibly mythic tale all about ambition, extreme discipline, and finding the ultimate cosmic loophole. We're looking at the story of two brothers who attempted the absolute impossible, literally trying to hack the laws of the universe so they could live forever. Honestly, it's like a masterclass in strategic thinking, just wrapped up in ancient mythology, and we are going to break down the whole shebang step by step.
So that brings us right to the core mystery of our explainer today. How do you become immortal when the universe strictly forbids it? You see, in the mythology we're exploring, absolute immortality is a hard line. No exceptions. The gods don't just hand it out, and they definitely don't give it to folks with a massive thirst for power. But what if you could engineer a set of conditions so specific, so perfectly tailored, that you become practically unkillable? Well, let's see exactly how our two protagonists attempted to solve this impossible puzzle.
All right, Section 1, Two Bodies, One Soul. To really understand this tale, we first have to meet the mighty Daitya brothers, Sunda and Upasunda, born to Nikumba with an incredibly fierce and wicked resolve.
Now, Sunda and Upasunda weren't just close brothers. They were identical in literally every single facet of their existence. They shared the exact same resolutions, the exact same happiness, the same woes, and even the same habits. They spoke only what was agreeable to each other, they never existed apart, and never traveled without the other. As the source text so brilliantly puts it, they were essentially one individual divided into two parts. It's like they were a single, perfectly synchronized mind operating two immensely powerful bodies. And this perfectly synchronized entity had one unified, terrifying ambition. They were desirous of subjugating the three worlds. They didn't just want a bunch of wealth or some local kingdom. No, they wanted total, absolute domination over the entire cosmos. And to achieve a goal of that staggering magnitude, they knew they were going to need power that completely defied the normal limits of reality.
Moving on to Section 2, the ultimate ascetic penance. You see, if you wanted cosmic power in those days, you had to perform extreme acts of self-discipline, so the brothers marched off to the Vindhya mountains to get started.
Their escalation of self-torture here is truly shocking. In the beginning, they started out with pretty standard austerities, wearing tree bark and letting their hair grow into these long matted locks. But soon, they pushed it way further. They covered themselves in dirt and survived on air alone. No food, no water whatsoever. Then they just stood endlessly on their toes, their arms completely upraised, their eyes fixed, locking their physical bodies into a state of permanent strain. And finally, the most gruesome step. They actually began cutting pieces of their own flesh and throwing them into the fire. This wasn't just dedication. This was a weaponized, horrific display of sheer willpower. And the sheer spiritual friction from all of this, the immense energy generated by their austerities over years and years, it literally altered the environment. The Vindhya mountains heated up. They began to emit vapor from every part of their rocky bodies. The mountain range itself was practically sweating under the oppressive weight of the brothers' ambition. Which brings us to Section 3, Surviving the Divine Illusions. Naturally, when a whole mountain range starts steaming, the cosmos takes notice, and the celestials decided they had to step in.
The gods basically threw everything they had at these brothers to break them. First, they tried the carrot, tempting them with every precious possession imaginable. When that failed, they sent down the most beautiful girls. And when lust and greed didn't work at all, the gods deployed full-on psychological warfare. They created these horrifying illusions. Suddenly, the brothers saw their mothers, wives, sisters, and relatives running toward them in absolute terror, with disordered hair and torn clothes. And chasing these phantom loved ones was a terrifying Rakshasa, a literal demon, wielding a lance, striking them down as the women screamed out, "Oh, save us!"
But despite this horrifying psychological warfare, the brothers broke not their vows. I really want to emphasize just how terrifying their mental fortitude was here. They watched what they believed to be their own family being slaughtered right in front of their eyes, begging for help, and they didn't even flinch, not once. They kept their arms raised, they kept their eyes fixed, and the illusion simply vanished because they completely failed to produce even the slightest impression on Sunda and Upasunda. Section 4. A Loophole for Immortality. Having entirely shattered the gods' defenses, the Supreme Lord Brahman was forced to descend and offer the Asuras a boon. Standing right there before Brahma, Sunda and Upasunda didn't hold back at all. They made this wildly audacious demand. Let us have knowledge of all weapons and of all powers of illusion. Let us be able to assume any form at will, and last of all, let us also be immortal. I mean, they asked for literally everything. They wanted absolute offensive power, total mastery of deception, limitless shapeshifting, and to top it all off, eternal life.
But Brahman is bound by cosmic law. He replies, "Since you have undergone the severe ascetic austerities from desire of sovereignty alone, I cannot confer on you the boon of immortality." He's totally fine granting them the weapons, the illusions, and the shapeshifting, but he draws a hard line at immortality. Because their entire motivation is just to subjugate the three worlds, absolute invincibility is completely off the table. He tells them flat out that they have to select some form of death.
So, instead of getting angry, the brothers get incredibly strategic. They immediately engineer the ultimate loophole. They ask to be completely fearless, entirely incapable of being slain by any created thing, mobile or immobile, in the entire universe, with one single exception: each other. Think about how brilliant this is for a second. They have spent their entire lives acting as one individual divided into two parts. They share every single thought and every single goal. Being killed by each other is, in their minds, an absolute mathematical impossibility. It's an exception that will never, ever happen.
And Brahman replies with these 8 chilling words: "I grant you what you have asked for." The universe basically accepts their terms. The grandsire makes them desist from their asceticism and heads back to his own region. Sunda and Upasunda have actually done it. They've successfully negotiated a contract with the cosmos that makes them practically invincible to the entire outside world.
Section 5. The invincible Asuras celebrate. Triumphant, they return to their abode, cut off those matted locks, put on these brilliant coronets, and prepare to just enjoy their new reality. And because they can now assume any form they want and wield massive illusion magic, their celebration isn't just your standard party. It's a complete manipulation of reality itself. They literally cause the moon to rise over their city every single night, even totally out of season, just to keep the atmosphere perfectly festive. The whole city is just filled with constant uproars of hilarity, clapping, eating, drinking, singing, and endless merriment.
But perhaps the most fascinating psychological shift is this little detail. They were so completely insulated from danger that they scarcely noticed the flight of time, actually regarding a whole year as a single day. When you don't fear death from anything in the universe, time completely loses its meaning. A year, a day, it's all exactly the same when you're effectively the gods of your own domain.
Which brings us to our final, provocative thought. They're invincible to the universe, sure, but what happens when your only weakness is the one person you share a soul with? They bet their entire infinite existence on the absolute certainty that their unbreakable bond could never be fractured. But if you know anything about mythology, or honestly just human nature, you know that the tiniest crack in a perfect system is all it takes to bring the whole thing crashing down. We're going to leave that thought hanging right there. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. I hope this structured look at Sunda and Upasunda helped you grasp the incredible depth of this ancient paradox. Keep learning, keep questioning, and I'll see you next time.